This is end of third session. There is a small slide, maybe our IT unit would like to post regarding our great sponsors. I am seeing hand from inside from the house from Mr. Paul here in the main hall. The participants, they are complaining they didn't get chance. Do you allow me to give? Mr. Paul?
Okay, one question. I'm afraid we've overrun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the organizers, the speakers. Presentations have been so well made, and I think it's a credit in your favor. I've been following discussions from the morning, but the most touching one has been this afternoon session. I'm getting a little bit more concerned that in Africa, our quality is getting from bad to worse and almost jumping to the worst of the raw hides and skins. Joining the Sustainable Leather Foundation or joining the Leather Working Group, I think will not have a greater impact into the penetration of the global market, which is becoming more and more competitive unless something is done to improve our quality. I am an LWG, Madam Christine. My tannery is under LWG, silver rated. And I'm finding it very difficult to penetrate the market because one, awareness of quality is becoming very, very difficult in most African countries, whereby the same kind of product that we put on the global market is being also put by other competitors where the quality is very good. So my observation is, unless we observe sustainable production process for all the tanners and manufacturers, and then start looking at maybe regenerating the reuse, recycling, and maybe the reduction of the wastes in our tanneries, that's how we can become competitive with people from different parts of the world. Otherwise, the future of the leather is becoming very grim, especially when the quality is becoming a very difficult issue. I expected from the policy whereby the presenters were going to mention something on the deteriorating quality issues amongst African countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Over to you, Mr. Paul.
I'm not sure if anybody wants to comment on that, but I've been involved in quite a lot of work on quality of rawhide skins and leather in Europe. And quality tends to depend on the end use and what the buyer wants. And it's quite a complicated issue. And I'm not sure that it's something that LWG or Debbie's organization would ever want to get involved with. I'm not sure. Do you have any comments on that, either of you, Debbie or?
I do have just a couple. I think quality is very important, particularly if you want to compete on the international stage. And I think that all of these things together create the package. We just had 2 tanneries join us from Zimbabwe, and neither of these tanneries have any certification in place at all right now. But I do know, particularly with one of these tanneries, that they are supplying a well-known high street brand, and I won't mention the brand, obviously. What we need to do is to create those partnerships and start working more holistically according to what a tannery can do. One of these tanneries that we were working with has already looked at all of our information and has said, look, we really think we're going to have some challenges with some of the environmental parts of what we need to do, but we think we can definitely do the social part. So we're going to concentrate on social first, because that's what we can be more impactful on right now. Quality is built on a lot of other things, as well as the raw source from the animal. How it's treated, how it's looked after, how much the staff are involved in wanting to preserve the quality. And you're right, doing that quality assessment for different grading, for different applications is part of that process. So we have to look at the whole big picture when we're thinking about quality, and not just that raw material, although that is vital, because if you haven't got great raw material to start with, you're never going to get a great end product, although there's lots that you can do in the process. And I know that there's one tannery that prefers to buy slightly lesser grade raw material to make it as good as they possibly can in process. And they say that helps their margins. There's lots of different ways to think about quality and how we apply it. But crucially, for that international market, yes, we have to work together to level up that playing field, keep it accessible, not have those barriers to entry, and to start working within tanneries and within facilities to help them with their processes for better quality. And I know Gustavo's got his hand up as well, so.
Yes, if I may, if I may come in as well, Paul.
Sorry?
Can I come in this?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Well, I would like to say that the fact that we don't control the quality of the raw materials is again the evidence that raw hides and skins are a residue of meat production, and they are not really putting all the interest in having a high quality output in terms of hides and skins as they do with wool or with meat or with milk, which are the essential, the determining products of the supply chain. But of course, we need to do what we can in order to improve the partnership with our suppliers, because for various reasons, simply for ethical reasons, because we are also involved in society and we don't want animals to be bad treated. We want that the slaughter process takes place in a humane manner. We want that the animals do not suffer during their lifetime, etc. So for all these reasons, we also want to have well-treated animals that are going to yield then at the end of their life cycle a quality hide or skin. And that's what we try to do in Europe. We try to establish with our suppliers, with the various supply chains, relationship that is going to allow us to find the understanding that the best for the value chain, it is a mutual benefit that the quality of the hides and skins at the origin are good. That's very important. But one thing to end with, to make a good quality leather out of a good quality raw materials is easy. That's very easy. To do a good quality leather from a bad quality raw material, that's art. And that's what the tanners are here for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this before we close?
I just have one more thing to add to that,
sure.
if I may. Yeah,
Yes.
I would just say I agree with what Gustavo said, definitely. Knowing where the material is coming from as a byproduct of the meat industry is also incredibly important. This is also why we're now developing our work on chain of custody, especially looking at developing regional traceability in countries where farming and slaughter is not commercialized. So this is one of our priority areas that we're looking at working on developing with the Leather Working Group that would also feed into this topic of quality.
Okay, thank you. Just from my own comment is that I think quality is a rather abstract idea, and it's more important to think about fitness for purpose. And what's happened over recent years is that the technologies in the tanneries have improved a great deal in terms of say making a silk purse out of a sow's ear is an English expression, but being able to use what apparently was a not very good quality raw material for a range of purposes by covering up faults or careful processing and selection of what you actually do with the material. Anyway, I think, again, I'd like to try and close this session. We do have a session after the break of general discussion. So if anyone feels that they have some unanswered questions, that would be the time to raise them. So thank you again for our 4 speakers this afternoon. And if I may hand back to our host, who will formally close the session and tell us what happens next.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Once again, Mr. Paul. In fact, I was hearing from the house if Dr. Kerry may hear me, instead of breaking this discussion, if Dr. Kerry can come in and continue lively with this discussion, and then after we break and come back for the closing part. If Dr. Kerry agree from the organizer side, we are okay.
I think we have 35 minutes left to the end of the official end of the conference, don't we? So there's an open session now for some discussion. If there's any further points anyone would like to consider, as an opening gambit, I'd like to offer perhaps a controversial opinion that for all the sustainability work that's being done, for all the great improvements in technology and chemistry, and for all the transparency that goes with auditing, it means absolutely nothing if we cannot get that message out to our consumers. If people do not believe that leather is a good product to buy, they won't buy it, and we will lose ground regardless of what we do. So we need to be much, much better at talking to our customers and the consumer and explaining why leather is a good material for people and for the planet, and working as a much more coordinated industry to achieve that. And I think one of the curiosity things that's come out of COVID is that there's been a lot more communication between the associations around the world, which has resulted in things like the manifesto for the COP26 meeting, which was published last week. So with that thought in mind, I'll open the floor for any other further questions or discussion points.
I have something.
Hello.
I'm speaking from here, and yeah, thank you here for organizing all this. It is not easy, and it was, for the circumstances, really well done. And although we had some technical issues this morning, I also was following with very much interest these presentations, and I think it was very informative. And yeah, a lot of achievements and improvements have been done in the leather industry. And I think it is clear the leather industry is not chased by the sustainability process. We really have inherited or incorporated this, all the enterprises and so on. And the data quality becomes better, and the data a scheme becomes available, which is what is good and what is bad in KPIs, and even great benchmarks and assessments are already available. But I'll come to the point. I believe a lot of these achievements have been done, of course, by enterprises, but were pushed and driven by several NGOs in our industry, and that is very unique for our industry. We have some, and also a lot of associations which are very active, and they need to work together like wheels in a clockwork. Yeah, they should partner up, and they should avoid any double work, and they should be open for collaborations. And even more important, in our one job we all have together to defend the leather industry for these faults and wrong attacks from other areas and segments, we have to align and be together. And this industry alignment is extremely important. And I believe we have done a very good job in the industry in the last 10 years, and we can be very proud of this. But now I come to my point. Unfortunately, I mean, we need a budget in order to manage this. And unfortunately, the majority of this overall budget in our industry comes from a small group of enterprises. And actually, the entire industry is benefiting of it. And that's not fair. That is simply not okay. And I believe this has to be changed. And I would like to do some kind of a call out to all listeners and enterprises and companies and so on. Everyone, I guess, is currently in the budgeting process for next year. And I would like to call out a golden formula. If every company would follow this formula, and this formula is 0.5 per mil of the turnover, should a company allocate for these type of industry relationship work, which is extremely important for our industry. 0.5 per mil of the turnover. If we all would do this, we would have a budget of 50 million euro as an industry. And this is roughly, it sounds very much, but this is similar, more or less equally to that what PETA has, only in the US. And you know, everyone knows what PETA is doing, and that is only one other NGO. So it would be not a huge budget for our industry. And I mean, if a company with 2 million turnover, they would have to spend then 1,000 euro per year for industry relations. A company with 20 million turnover would have to spend 10,000, and 200, it would be then 100,000. And I also can tell you, we had last week our talk in our EC at TFL, and I was also insisting, and it was approved. Yeah, we have 500 million of a turnover, and we will put 250,000 euro in our budget for industry relations. And if everyone would do this, then we would be in a much better shape. Yeah. This is my golden rule, which I want to call out here, 0.5 per mil in the budgeting round for industry allocations, and not only budgeting, even spending from January then onwards. And everybody, of course, can choose whatever kind of NGO he would like to support, if it is Leather Naturally or the NGOs we heard today, Leather Working Group or SLF, or Real Leather in the US, or the national associations like UNICH, CLIA, or BDL, whatever it is. But this is the amount every company should put aside and support our joint industry effort. That's the point I wanted to make. 0.5 per mil of turnover. The golden rule.
I might just come back on that. Firstly, just to say that the associations are working closely together. There is a lot more happening now than ever has happened. And we can see that in, for instance, the collective group, which is challenging the Sustainable Apparel Coalition and HIGCO on the leather MSI score. That is national associations, ICT, IOTCS, Leather Naturally, Leather Working Group. Everyone is putting a bit into that to make it happen, and supporting the arguments we're making. So it can be done. But I would also agree that you're absolutely right. We will get nowhere unless we actually spend some money on spreading this message, and everyone needs to put their hand in their pocket and do a little bit. Even my association in the UK, which is a trivial budget compared to most, we have just currently engaged a PR company with a view to spreading the message on specifically British leather, obviously. And we're already in very short order, making some impact with a very limited budget. With a much larger budget, we should be able to actually start changing the tide a little. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people know this. I was in the last year, very last years, together with Egbert from Smith & Sohn and Fernando Beleze from Prime Asia now. I don't want to mention companies here. This is an industry effort. We all sit together in the same boat, and we have to row in the same direction. And it is so difficult in our industry to get the funds together to do something good. You know, these Matcha campaign, for example, or other campaigns, one for leather, real leather. There are so many good initiatives, yeah. And I strongly believe if we wouldn't have done this, our leather industry would be in a very, very, very deep difficulty. And so we have done already a good job, but it's not enough, yeah, to get 1 million together for the Matcha campaign. The PETA people would laugh about this, yeah, that is Mickey Mouse for them. So, but if it comes only from 2 handful of companies, yeah, then it is already a lot from these companies. And as I said in the beginning, the industry is benefiting from this, and therefore we need to share it on many, many shoulders. And these 0.5 per mil turnover rule would hurt no company. And if everyone follows this, then we would be in a much better shape.
Gustavo.
Yes, thank you. I fully agree with Dietrich. We are, as an industry, not very enthusiastic, I would say, in putting up a common resources for spending them for for the objectives of the industry. But it is also a matter of education. We need to develop this type of practices, and what we try to do at the European level is to set up individual or specific projects, specific initiatives that capture the interest of the tanners and that have, as a result, a better understanding of leather in the community, in society. And that's what we try to do. As we were quite happy that we could stimulate the development of for instance, of the Filk study that you have seen. That was a very important success for our industry, because we could actually demonstrate how the performance of leather is much more comprehensive than any of the alternative materials that are there on the market. And that is, we did not do very much. We simply provided the samples, and we simply supported also the publication of the study. So the rest was done independently by Filk, but it had a very good impact. That was a very good initiative. The same, we need to do that. We need to put up projects, ideas, initiatives that convince the industry to put in the money and to support the communication to the general public. And the more and the better we do that, the more we will be able to appear as successful on the market as well. Thank you.
Another good example is a C14 analysis of leather, yeah, where you can differentiate a synthetic material from a leather in the final article. Yeah, it's a fantastic method. You know? And yes, the arguments are on our side. We have to use these tools, but as I said, campaigns cost money, and we have now the setup in our organizations, yeah, with Leather Naturally as a, let's say, most general NGO, where we can, yeah, dedicate the money, and it is well spent, and yeah, then we can use those tools and studies in order to come with good arguments, hopefully that we get listened by the brands and OEMs.
Yeah, a very good point made by Gustavo there is the need for data. As we saw from Kim's presentation this morning, the impact on actually having primary data on the score in the MSI is phenomenal. It shows not only how out of date the HIGCO data is, but how good tanneries can be. And the more tanneries do this, the more they share that data, so we can build an industry data set, a much stronger argument we'll have for refuting the claims that are being made about our sector. This is the challenge for us at the moment with our discussions with HIG, is getting together the necessary data to show that they're wrong. And we're having some success there. And hopefully we'll also see some change there. Deborah.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to be a bit controversial here. When I created the Sustainable Leather Foundation and when I set it up, and I'm going right back to the crux of what Dietrich was talking about, which is industry setting aside money to support these organizations that are here to support the industry. I spoke to many people and they were all, Deborah, this is great. This is what the industry needs. This is what's missing, bringing it all together. It's a picture frame that brings everything together into one transparent space. Love it, love it, love it. That was what I got. My first membership year, none of those people put their hands in their pockets and supported what we were doing at the foundation. Now, let me be very clear. The foundation was self-financed. I created the framework for the foundation alongside Carl Flowers in my own time, and I didn't get paid for that. Nobody is funding this. It's not being funded by one part of the industry over another part of the industry, chemical companies, tanneries. It's completely independent. It's completely self-supporting, but it is a not-for-profit foundation. And I can only do the work if I have money to do the work with. And I can't keep funding it myself. The early adopters, the people that came on board right at the beginning, were not those people that talk the loudest in all of these industry functions. They were other people that listened and thought, right, this is something we can get on board with, and they have supported. So my early adopters were not the people, maybe one or two exceptions to that, but by and large were not the people that I fully expected would support the foundation and our aims and our vision. So I would hold the glass up and have a good long look, because we've done this to support the industry. But in order to do that, industry has to come together and support it. And, you know, yes, data, that's why the dashboard is transparent. That's why we're trying to not hide things behind aggregated scores, because that doesn't work. There is not one size fits all in this industry. You can have two tanneries next door to each other on the same street and they will have a different impact, depending on what their value chain is, depending on where their supply is coming from, and depending on what their customer base is. So you cannot keep trying to homogenize our industry into this one size fits all approach. We have to look at it. I completely agree that we need to define baseline metrics and have harmonization there. Once we've got those, they will evolve. They will keep growing as we keep growing. But we've got to start with one set of data to begin with. And I'll say something else as well. I was on an industry-wide email trail, and for some reason I got excluded from it. I don't know why, but again, hold your hands up and be accountable for what is taking place and what is going on in this industry. We do have to work together, and that's exactly what SLF stands for the industry moving forward. And sorry, I'm going to get back off my soapbox now, but there you go.
Okay. Are there any other comments, observations, questions? Somebody in the hall?
Yes, one from the hall.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carey. I'm very much interested in this Congress. I have one question for the afternoon panelists, Deborah and Christina. I'm talking about the LWG mechanisms. I'm addressing this hosting country, Ethiopia, and I would like to tell you the practical problems faced in Ethiopia. We have one contract on the leather to the Asian countries, and we signed 1 million square feet of leather, upper leather. But lately, meantime, that company, the buyer company, said we registered in LWG. So if you are not a LWG registered company, we cannot take out the leather. We are not importing the leather they paid. So ICT, you are a 95 years old council. Is there any mechanism to help small and medium-sized tanners in Ethiopia and other parts of Africa to facilitate this kind of registrations and the certification? This is my question. Thank you very much, Dr. Kiri.
If I understood correctly, are you asking if can ICT support small tanneries to join LWG? Is that the question?
Yeah, yes, it's in that sense.
And the short answer is no. LWG is a separate entity from ICT. ICT is an advocacy organization, a collective of associations. We are here to address industry issues in terms of position, policy, and understanding. We're not in a position to facilitate sort of individual tanneries to take steps, practical steps, if you will, on sustainability measures, such as joining whichever of the different audit systems you might want to use. And really, we're not qualified to discuss them because obviously they are separate entities. I think, Christina, I don't know if you want to comment on how LWG might be able to support smaller industries in places like Africa to become party to LWG.
Yes, I'll be happy to comment. So I think probably our answer for that would be to join the Tanner of the Future program as the first step. This would provide the stepping stone to work towards certification. So you can join freely as an affiliate member for the first 2 years and take the self-assessment, gain access to the resources and the full network of the LWG, and then use the resources to basically work towards the improvements and to be able to have certification. We are also working with partner organizations like Solidaridad and WWF in various countries, and we are also planning to expand this program. So nothing is officially decided yet, but we are working towards that. So if you are interested, please do reach out to us as we progress that topic further.
Gustavo, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. Just very briefly, I would also like to say that in this respect, that as an industry, we are not very good in mobilizing public funding for supporting our industry in the developing world. That is to say, there are a number of organizations, of national organizations in the developed world that are providing financial support to developing countries, and we are not so good in tapping these monies that are there. You maybe in India you have more experience with that, also because the German economy in general has had much more contact with India. The Gesellschaft für Zusammenarbeit, for instance, GSZ, has been very active in India, and but not only there, also in other countries in the world. But there is also the US aid or the EU aid support system for the developing world. If you contact the representative organizations in your country for these support, you may be able to put up a project initiative that would maybe supply the funding for setting up your industry in the international market. So that is a recommendation. Please don't hesitate to contact the EU delegation in your country, the US embassy, the German embassy, that are going to be helping you to contact these funding organizations and try to set up initiatives that would, let's say, well, we want as a cluster, as an industry cluster in the leather industry, be all certified against the Sustainable Leather Foundation, for instance. That would, in order to allow us to have a better access to the markets of the developed world. So this is something that we would need to do all as an industry much more efficiently. And for that, maybe what we can do is count also on the support of UNIDO. The UNIDO Leather unit has been doing that for quite a long time and is still doing it. And we are all, as an industry, very grateful for the work that UNIDO is doing. ILO, the International Labour Organization. In the past, the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, was also very active in leather in the subgroup of hides and skins, but not any longer now, unfortunately. But I would say let's try to tap and to mobilize these funding opportunities worldwide in order to support the industry to be more sustainable and to be more capable to supply the markets of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah, you had another comment?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones really. In terms of practical support right now, two things. One of the things that we encourage is partnership between tanners and their customers, their brand customers. And so when we're working with a tannery that has no certification at all right now, what we try to encourage is that communication with their customers to say, okay, if you have a wish list, what are the most important criteria right now that we need to do as a tannery in order that we can continue to work with? And we build a tailored plan with the tannery and their brand to say, okay, this is our year 1 priorities, this is year 2, this is year 3. But crucially, it's about making it work for the tannery at their own speed and within a resource that they can afford, because not every tannery has financial or manpower resource to be able to do these things. So we have a really low entry partnership rate for tanneries that have no certification at all, because they don't need anything mapping. They don't need their dashboard built with all the certification they already have. They're starting from a completely grey, unassessed position. So it's a really low rate, but what that does is it gets them into the foundation. It gives them access to us to support their roadmap and to help them build those partnerships. And it also gives them all the materials they need to do it themselves without relying on hugely expensive consultants, which again, if you're in a country like Ethiopia or another country in Africa or other parts of the world, you don't have that resource. You don't have the means to support a really expensive consultant. So we fill that void for you. So they're very practical ways in which we can support, because there's a fine line between a certification that demonstrates credibility and performance and a certification that becomes a barrier to access. So we have to be careful that we don't get confused, because at the end of the day, it is about supporting the industry. Thanks, Kerry.
Just mindful of time, Professor Halimaram, was there any closing comments that you wish to make?
Sorry, Dr. Kerry.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, was there any closing comments that you wish to make? We've got about 6 or 7 minutes to go.
Maybe from our acting executive director, let me give him the floor to say a few words.
Thank you, Prof. And now, in the morning we were saying good morning and good afternoon, but now I think in some parts of the world it has become good evening, and therefore good afternoon and good evening, distinguished Dr. Kerry, Secretary, International Council of Tanners, Excellencies, distinguished ICT Executive Committee members, speakers, colleagues, distinguished participants, all protocols of the beginning. Let me start by congratulating you on the successful conclusion of the Congress. Your well-studied and presented papers have enabled us to come into a conclusion with a robust and forward-looking recommendations, as well as knowledge of deep knowledge of the laser sector. Therefore, I just would like to give special thanks for the presenters, moderators, sponsors, as well as for all the participants for their active participation. In particular, I would like to congratulate and thank for the organizing committee, for our co-hosts, the officials of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, the Ministry of Industry, the Laser Industry Development Institute, and the other ministries in one way or the other, who has contributed in one way or the other for the successful conducting of the Congress. Allow me also to give special thanks to those who have traveled all the way from Europe to be with us today to participate in this Congress and the coming Congress of the IULTCS, especially Mr. Jean-Pierre, the incoming president of the IULTS, Mr. Temer, and the others, of course. I also would like to express our gratitude for the sponsors, for our gold, silver, and bronze sponsors. Yes, over this one day Congress, we have discussed, listened, and deliberated on the pressing issues of the laser industry, and our presenters has deliberated, discussed the challenge, as well as, of course, they have come with their solutions. And therefore, I just would like to thank them. Allow me also, as I conclude once again, to thank Dr. Kerry for all your support in organizing, in the preparation, as well as in conducting the Congress successfully. Finally, I thank you all for your patience, active participation, and insightful contribution. I trust that you found the meeting as fruitful as I found it to be. Stay safe and just look forward to seeing you again in the coming IULTCS Congress. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Over to you, Dr. Kerry.
Okay, well, I should be very brief. I just have to say that today has been a really very interesting day. This has demonstrated very clearly why this World Weather Congress is so important. We've had some excellent presentations from some excellent, very well-respected speakers on where we are and where we need to go, and particularly with the frame of sustainability, which is the subject at the moment that needs attention. On behalf of ICT, I'd just like to thank our speakers again, shared some fascinating presentations. I'd like to thank Professor Haile Mariam Conan and his team for bringing the conference together in what has been extremely difficult and changing circumstances, which has made things very, very hard. I know they've worked very, very hard to try and get this together. And obviously delivering a hybrid conference across so many time zones is always going to be difficult. And I think they've dealt with it admirably. Thanks again to the sponsors, because without them, this wouldn't have happened. And I do genuinely believe that this is something that needs to happen. Our industry, after everything we've been through in the past couple of years, needs to come together and talk about what we're doing right and where we need to go. I'd also like to give thanks to Paul Pearson for coming out of retirement once again, to moderate one of these sessions. It's always good to see you, Paul. And then finally, thanks to our audience for your attention today. I hope it's been useful, and I hope to see you at the next one. And I wish you all a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I think those who are here in the hall before going, we will take coffee. Thank you for the extended this presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, teacher. Bye-bye.